Hi, it's Carolyn here. Before you start listening to this episode, I just wanted to let you know that I'm currently in Switzerland doing my very own and long overdue trip around the country. I'm visiting some of the most popular destinations in Switzerland, as well as a number of lesser known places. And I'm travelling around by both car and train. If you'd like to follow along with my Swiss travels to see where I am and what I'm doing, make sure you follow Holidays to Switzerland on Instagram. That's holidays2 Switzerland. Here I'll be sharing photos and reels as I go, and I'd love you to follow along. Now, settle back and enjoy this episode.
Are you dreaming of visiting Switzerland? Planning a trip to Switzerland is very exciting, but it can also be overwhelming. How do you choose which of the many scenic cities, towns and villages to visit? Which mountaintop excursions should you take? And what's the best way to get around Switzerland? And of course, how much of the country can you realistically see within your time frame? If you've asked yourself any of these questions, this is the podcast for you. This is the Holidays to Switzerland travel podcast, and in each episode, your host Carolyn Schonnefinger chats with Swiss travel experts to answer your most commonly asked questions, provide practical tips, and take you on a virtual visit to the most popular destinations, and of course some hidden gems to help you plan your dream trip to Switzerland. And you'll hear plenty of conversations about Swiss cheese and chocolate too. Are you ready to plan your trip to Switzerland? Well, let's get started.
Welcome to the Holidays to Switzerland travel podcast. You're listening to episode 39. Basel may be Switzerland's third largest city, but it is often overlooked by visitors who head straight for the more well-known tourist destinations of Zurich, Lucerne, Zermatt, and the Jungfrau region. I, too, am guilty of bypassing Basel on my many visits to Switzerland. Sure, I've passed through Basel on many occasions on my way to or from other destinations, but I've never actually stopped in the city to explore it. I'm sure today's guest is going to ensure I rectify that pretty soon. I've read a lot about Basel, and I know there are some really incredible sights and some very unique things to do in the city. So I'm really excited to learn more. You may remember my guest Natascha Martin from the Christmas Markets episode. I loved chatting with Natascha in that episode. I could really get a sense of her passion for her city. So I had no hesitation in inviting her back to tell us more about Basel. I hope you enjoy what Natascha has to share with us today, and we'll be packing your bags and your camera soon for a visit to Basel. If you need the perfect shot, you need Switzerland. So why not make Basel a part of your trip? Thanks again to Switzerland Tourism for sponsoring the podcast. Their website, myswitzerland.com, is packed with practical information and ideas to help you plan your trip to Switzerland. Hi, Natascha. Thank you very much for joining me today and for coming back onto the podcast.
Hello, Caroline. So thank you very much for the invite. I'm happy to be here with you and with all the listeners.
Oh, wonderful. Now, you were recently on the podcast, a guest on episode 34, where we chatted about Christmas in Switzerland, and you shared lots of wonderful things to do in Basel at Christmas time. But just so that we can all get to know you a little bit better, can you start by telling us a bit about yourself and your role with Basel Tourism?
Yes, of course, it would be a pleasure. But actually, Caroline, I think my story would need an extra episode. But I'll try to keep it short, just to give you a little picture. So I'm German, actually, but at heart Spanish, because I mostly grew up in Spain. But then, to make it short, after my studies in Germany, I studied geography and tourism. I decided to move to Switzerland for work. And time flies. I've been in Basel for almost 14 years now. So, yeah, it's incredible. And with Basel Tourism, which I joined 8 years ago, I started as a sales manager. And actually now I'm also responsible for marketing and PR activities for the North American market, but also for other important source markets.
Oh, wonderful. So you've had a lot of experience in a few different countries.
Yeah, it's true. A bit internationally moved around, but that's typical, I think, for us people working in the tourism industry, isn't it?
Yes, for sure. So for those listeners who aren't familiar with Basel, what are the important things that we should know about the city?
Okay, so Basel in a nutshell. Basel, it's the third largest city in Switzerland, and it's located at the River Rhine in the northwestern part of Switzerland. And actually the inhabitants, it's 200,000. But even though it's the third largest city in Switzerland, we also call it boutique town, because maybe if you think of a city, you think of million inhabitants, but Switzerland has only 8 million. So when it comes to Basel, 200,000 inhabitants. And it's located actually at the border with France and Germany. That's why we call it's the three countries corner. So it's in Switzerland, you're in one spot, but you're in three countries basically at the same time. Mm-hmm. And Basel is really in the heart of Europe, and it can be reached very easily by train, by car, by plane, and even by river cruise ships. And I think we will touch on this topic later on. Mm-hmm. So, for example, Paris, Frankfurt are only 3 hours away from Basel and are connected by high-speed trains like the TGV Lyria or the ICE. And other Swiss cities like Zurich, maybe most of you know Zurich or have been there, or to the airport. So Zurich, Lucerne or Bern can be reached within 1 hour, as well as the international airport in Zurich.
It's well located to reach all other parts of Switzerland and the neighbouring countries.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that Basel is on the borders with France and Germany. So I guess it's quite a multilingual city. So what languages are spoken in Basel?
That's a good question, Caroline. So actually, officially, the official language spoken in Basel is the German, because it belongs to the German-speaking part of Switzerland. But thanks to geographical location and all the international headquarters of big companies, French and English are also spoken very often too. So you basically hear all the languages, also lots of Spanish, but yeah.
Okay, so anyone who's visiting Basel that only speaks English, they'll be able to understand and get along quite fine without knowing another language.
Yes, definitely. They'll find a way, and they'll be able to speak with the people here. Yeah.
Oh, good. So now, because you just mentioned that the city is located on the Rhine, I think many international visitors come to Basel at either the start or the end of a river cruise. But why would you encourage them to spend a couple of days in the city rather than just using it as their departure or arrival point after their cruise?
Well, yes, I definitely have to say that river cruising guests who are missing out this hidden gem, if they decide to skip Basel, they're missing out something. So definitely they have to put Basel on the map, not just for the start or the ending point, and discover Basel, because really Basel's beauty can really only be discovered when you are staying in the city. So when you're staying in Basel, and many people don't know because they just arrive at the river cruising terminal. Maybe it's at the one at the port, and they just leave to head off to the airport. So they don't see really the beauty of Basel. Basel boasts a medieval and very well preserved old town with historic buildings dating back to the 15th century, and has charming cobbled streets and alleys. So it's really a gem. And in terms of art and architecture, Basel is one of the hotspots in Europe. So it has world-class museums, galleries, and outstanding examples of modern architectural masterpieces. So that's a very nice contrast, in my opinion, with the medieval old town and the modern architecture. And also one other reason to stay in Basel in any accommodation is that all visitors who stay in Basel overnight, they will receive a Basel card. And this guest card is for free, and it allows all tourists to travel around easily and freely with the public transportation. They can also use the internet for free, and they can benefit from 50% reduction all cultural and leisure attractions.
Okay, that's a great bonus. And is there a particular area in Basel that you recommend that visitors should stay in?
So Basel is a very compact city. For sure, the picturesque old town and the location at the River Rhine invites visitors to experience the essence of Basel. So if you stay there, it's beautiful. You'll discover it in a very own way. But overseas tourists who are traveling Europe by train, for example, they will also find a good selection of accommodations around the train station.
Okay, so there's something to suit everyone.
Exactly.
Now, I'll have to admit here that I'm one of those naughty people that have not actually been into Basel. I've driven through a number of times. I haven't been on a river cruise, but I have driven through a number of times, but I never have actually stopped in Basel. So I'm very sorry about that. I'll have to change that. But can you just tell us some of the top things that we should do when we do go to Basel?
Yeah, that would be a pleasure for me because many people drive through and they don't even know what they missed out. So I'm happy to explain a bit what are the top things to do in Basel. Because sometimes Basel is ester-rated or not well known, so we have to change that. And you're invited to come to Basel, Caroline.
Thank you very much.
And also, listeners, please contact me. We have to change that and make Basel more known because it's really beautiful. So what to do and what to see in Basel. So definitely take enough time to explore the charming old town with its pretty alleys and squares. So, for example, the Basel Minster is a Romanesque Gothic style cathedral with a long history, so over 1,000 years. You have to see that. Mm-hmm. And it offers panoramic views of the Rhine below. So a well-deserved reward after climbing the winding cobblestone streets. So it's on a little hill and you have the beautiful view. You can discover the Black Forest and also you can see France. So that's a great viewing point. And another historic landmark of the city is the richly decorated red sandstone town hall. I think it's the most beautiful building in Basel. And it's dating back to 1501. So I think that's quite a remarkable date. And it's located at the Market Square.
Okay.
And then another top thing to see is the unique Spalenberg. That's a little shopping road. And it offers small boutiques, antique bookshops, but also shops of modern designers. And this street is really unique in Switzerland. So you have to come and see it. Mm-hmm. No comparison to Bahnhofstrasse in Zurich. That's definitely another character, another type of shops too. And this Spalenberg, this little alley leads to the Spalentor. And the Spalentor is one of the 3 remaining city gates, which is also a top thing to see. So dating back to the medieval times, the Spalentor is really impressive. And then you have to say that Basel is also known for the museums. So it's home to 40 museums. And it's a city of culture for connoisseurs and has the highest concentration of museums in the country, I think even in Europe too. And so one of those 40 museums is also a must-see in Basel. Mm-hmm. And then last but not least, experience the Rhine River with all its facets. So the Rhine River is the lifeblood in Basel and is also, of course, a very important ancient trading route. And it connects Basel with the Northern Sea and to the world. And it's the place to be. So when you come in Basel, you have to discover the Rhine, not only from the river cruise ship, but maybe dive in or take a ferry. We'll talk about that in a moment.
I'm looking forward to that. You said that Basel is quite a compact city. So if someone wanted to wander around the old town and go and visit those places that you've mentioned, how long would they need to do that properly?
Well, I think one day, if you can do it in one day, but I definitely would encourage guests to stay for 2 days or 3 days to discover also the surroundings. Because, I mean, as I said, you can go to France or to Germany, discover also the countryside of Basel. But to walk around the Basel city center, I think 1 day is a must.
Okay.
Or more.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Now, you did mention there that you've got to do something related to the river. And I know that there's actually quite a few pretty unique experiences that you can enjoy in Basel. So would you like to tell us about some of those?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that because I also love to do that in summer.
Oh,
so the Rhine, as I said, is the lifeblood. So I'm desperately waiting for the temperatures to rise because swimming in the Rhine is Basel's most popular sport in summer. Well, the summer season, it might go from May to September, but definitely July and August are the main months. So do as the locals do. And what do? They are so crazy. They swim in the Rhine or they let themselves float down the Rhine because actually with the current, you don't really have to swim. So that's a really special, unique experience, very sustainable. People do it and also tourists more and more. They dare to do it too. and mingle with the tourists, with the locals. And what you have to do, so you have to get your wickel fish. That's very important. So that's the swimming bag that has a shape of a fish. It was invented in Basel. All kinds of colors. So you can have your wickel fish in blue and pink, whatever. And then you put your clothes in, your belongings, you wrap it up so they don't get wet. And then you jump into the Rhine and let yourself flow. It might take up to 45 minutes. You can do it for 20 minutes too if you want, or half an hour. And then you get off the water, you go out, and then you get changed. There are even showers in some spots, and you can walk back and go in the river again. So that's really an activity which is seen very often. It's quite bizarre, but I think it's unique, and people are looking for unique experiences. The good thing about it, it's for free. You don't have to make any reservations. You can do it at any daytime. You're not alone. You'll be with people there, and just watch out the river cruise ships. But actually, they're designated areas, so you won't get lost there. Okay. So this is definitely one of the things to do.
Yeah. And is the wickel fish like an inflatable sort of bag? So like a buoyancy kind of flotation device, is it?
Exactly. It looks like one of those, but actually you don't put any air in. But by putting your clothes in and then wrapping it up, it will get filled with air automatically.
Right.
So it looks like a buoy, and then you wrap it up, you close it, and it gets fixed and it stays dry.
And what else can we do on the Rhine?
Yes, and then you should definitely take a ferry. So the ferry ride is unique to Basel too. That's also, you can only do it in Basel. And then you cross the Rhine, and there are 4 of those ferries which you can take. They are motorless. So it's also very sustainable, very relaxing, decelerating, and it's really a fun way to get to the other side of Basel, because Basel is divided by the Rhine. And it's just using a wire and the powerful current of the River Rhine. So I think it's quite amazing to experience that.
Okay. Crossing the river without any motor.
Exactly. And there are even Basel people commuting with the ferries from Klein Basel to Big Basel. So
okay. And how long does it take to cross the river?
Well, like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
Depending a bit on the current, but not more than 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's a very, very relaxing commute then to work every day.
Yeah, it is.
And what other sustainable things can we do when we go to Basel?
What we also suggest, if you want to be a bit more active, is to discover Basel by bike. And we also offer e-bikes. So, for example, with the Basel card, you can rent an e-bike for only 20 francs a day. You can rent a bike at the train station, at the main train station, and off you go. So you can discover Basel, the city of Basel. You can go to the Foundation Bayerler, which is the most visited art museum. It's a bit in the outsides of Basel, in the outskirts. And then you can head to the Rehberger Weg, which is like a type of biking trail, and head to Germany. So actually you cross the borders.
Okay.
And then you can visit also the Vitra campus, which is a very important museum or area in terms of architecture and design. And then from the Vitra campus, you can cross the Rhine again and head off to France. You can cross the Dreiländerbrücke, which is the 3 countries bridge. Actually, it's the largest pedestrian and bicycle bridge in the world. So you cross to France, you can have your croissant there, or your vin rouge, and then you can return to Switzerland, either passing by Novartis campus or returning to the port of Basel. Maybe you'll see a river cruise ship, and then the port area is very interesting, and you can return to Basel city, the city center, and return your bike by the port area.
Oh, what a lot of fun. So that would be bragging rights for people, especially like myself from Australia or someone from America, to tell their friends they rode a bike to 3 different countries in one day.
Yeah, definitely. I think you can put that on your list here. Exactly. Yeah. Take your passport with you, get it stamped.
Sounds like fun. Now, in the Christmas episode of the podcast, we talked about all the different and wonderful things to do in Basel during the festive season. But for people that are coming at other times of the year, are there other festivals or events that they can visit as well?
Oh, yes, there are many, many events. So Basel is also an event city. And besides the popular Christmas market, which you named and which we had a podcast on in the episode 34, Basel hosts many major events as the Carnival in Basel, which is coming up now. And the Carnival is part of the city's identity, culturally speaking. And it represents 3 days. It's 72 hours, 3 days when the city goes wild. And owing to this uniqueness and quality, the largest carnival of Switzerland has become a UNESCO intangible cultural heritage. We're very proud of that.
Okay.
So it's the largest carnival in Switzerland. It's World UNESCO cultural heritage. It's always after the other carnivals in the world. So it starts on Monday after Ash Wednesday, which is very peculiar. Mm-hmm. So with all these traditions and specialties, Basel is really unique. The Basel Carnival.
And for those that aren't familiar with the Carnival, what is the history behind that, or the purpose, I guess, of the Carnival?
Well, actually, there are several backgrounds or purposes. One of them, of course, is the winter is long and hard, so you have to chase the winter away and the demons from the devils from the winter. So this is one of the historic backgrounds. But then also it has also a military background, because people in former days they prepared their weapons one special season and then cleaned it up, and they gathered and played music or did marches. So that's also one of the backgrounds of the Fastnacht, the Basel Carnival.
Okay. And what sort of activities take place whilst the Carnival's on in Basel?
Yeah, there are several activities, and actually one of the most important highlight is definitely the Morgenstreich, which is the official start of the Carnival, which is, as I said, on Monday after Ash Wednesday at 4 a.m. 4 a.m. So people get up to experience this moment. And what's so special about this moment, so at 4 a.m., all the lights in the city are turned off. And you have to imagine that all the restaurants, all the houses, they have sealed their windows. So it's everything is dark. You don't see any lights in the houses. Also, the street lights are turned off. So this moment of darkness is very special. And then imagine the goosebumps which come up when at 4 o'clock a.m., all the musicians, the cliques, the associations, they start playing music, marching, all at the same time with the same march. Same music. And then also the lanterns they prepared throughout the year, they are also lit on in that moment. So I think it's a magic moment. And I know that very well traveled people, when they come to Basel, they say this is really unique and something you have to experience. So this is the Morgenstreich at 4 a.m. Then there are several marches throughout the day where they play different music, marches through the city. At night, we've got these Basel dialect sketches where they make fun of political happenings, events, people. There are also some concerts. Then on Tuesday, it's the day of the children. So this when the children, they do their marches and they get dressed up. At night, you'll have some different type of concerts. It's from the brass companies, the brass associations. They play rather a bit modern music. And then this goes on. On Wednesday, there are also cortege, the marches. So, I mean, I said 72 hours of
festivities.
Party in the city. Festivities, exactly. And and then there's also something you should see. It's the expositions of the lanterns. So there are very big lanterns which are carried or on carriages too, and they are shown at the Cathedral Square, where you can also have a look at them quietly and walk around. It's like an open air museum.
Very nice. Sounds definitely like something to that you need to experience once.
Definitely. Yes, at least once. Yeah, and then there's another event. Maybe you've heard of that too, or are more familiar, or people from the US, Art Basel Miami, maybe ring the bell. So Art Basel is also a very important event in Basel. Actually, it's the world's leading fair for contemporary art. And it's around 250 selected galleries from around the world who present their modern contemporary artworks of high quality. And it's really the most important fair, and it makes Basel the most important temporary museum too. So one museum more. And as I said, Art Basel has expanded to Miami like more than 10 years ago, and also to Hong Kong. So this is really a label or a brand which Basel is very famous for. And the origin, the mother fair, is Art Basel in Basel. Takes place in June.
Okay.
And then there's another event.
Yeah.
You can go on for hours. If you want to be among the crowd with Roger Federer, I know the Australians like him.
Wow, we love him.
And in the center court, you can experience Switzerland's biggest sporting event in person when you come to the Swiss indoors. So it's an indoor tournament every year. The tennis tournament is among the top events of the ATP Tour 500. And I'm sure you know that Roger's Swiss. Everyone knows it.
Yeah.
He's a really nice Swiss guy.
And he's from Basel, is that right?
And he's from Basel, yes. So I can't repeat that enough times. We're so proud. And also Roger has his own star, or with a plaque and a star at the Walk of Fame in Basel. So at the Spalenberg. And recently he has also his own streetcars, the Federer Express. So you can travel with Roger here in Basel.
And if we come to Basel, are we likely to see him out shopping?
You want to see him shopping?
Yeah. Does he do his grocery shopping in Basel?
Yeah. he does it. When after his tournament, he goes he does some shopping in Basel at the Spalenberg.
Are there any local specialties that we should try when we visit Basel? Is there any particular food associated with the Fastnacht, for instance, or other foods that are available year round?
Yes, well, related to the Fastnacht, the Basel Carnival, there's definitely the flour soup, the so-called Mehlsuppe, which you should try. It's a specialty, a seasonal specialty, so you'll probably only get it there. I mean, you can buy it in the supermarket, but that's really a temporary seasonal specialty, which you eat throughout the Fastnacht. So during the 72 hours to get warm again after marching around, you have the flour soup. But then talking generally, you can't leave Basel without having tried the Basel Leckerli. So what's Leckerli? That's our specialty. It's not Swiss chocolate. We do have Swiss chocolate, but we're very proud to have the Leckerli biscuits. So this biscuit is a type of gingerbread, but in contrast to the normal gingerbread, which is typical for Christmas, for the Christmas time, we eat the Basel Leckerli 365 days a year. So you eat it throughout the year, and it's very traditional, very typical. It's perfect to go with coffee or tea, and it's actually so traditional. It has already been baked during the medieval times, so in Middle Ages. And the thing about the recipe is also a great mystery, because the original Basel Leckerli, no one knows the exact recipe. It's top secret. And but what would you do know? The recipe it includes the best ingredients like honey, hazelnut, almonds, candied orange, lemon peel, and of course finest spices. But to be exact, no one knows. Everyone does it in its own way, and it's a bit of a top secret.
Okay.
We have the oldest biscuit factory in Switzerland, which is called Jacob's Basler Leckerli. So you can visit the factory. You can also learn how to do them, or at the Leckerli House, which is another brand of the Leckerli. You'll find also a large selection of the specialty. So there are ones covered with chocolate, or with apple, or with, you name it, different types of Leckerli variations.
Yeah, something for every taste.
Yeah.
Excellent. So if you were to show a first-time visitor around Basel in just one day, where would you take them?
One stop would be the Tangeli Fountain. So the Tangeli Fountain is next to the Theatre of Basel, right in the heart of Basel, let's say. And this Swiss artist, Jean Tangeli, he created this fountain. So it's a shallow fountain and it has 10 sculptural machines. So you have to imagine like 10 sculptures moving all the time, kinetic, and changing all the time also. And they're a bit, they're in their own rhythm. Everyone has its own rhythm. So it's really a nice play to follow. And it has been created over 40 years ago in a spot where in former times the artists of the Theatre of Basel were dancing or performing, because in former times it was a spot where the Theatre of Basel was before. And then they just constructed a new one, and there were the former theatres. There you can find the fountain. So I think the history behind this spot is interesting, and also, like the parallelism or the imitation, like the sculptures are imitating the artists in former days. So I think that's a nice place. It's refreshing with the fountain. Sometimes, depending on the winds, you get also a bit. You get refreshed by the fountain. So that's really one of the great places to be, to hang around. And also, I think you can get a feel of Basel. You feel that it's always in flux, that it's always reshaping itself. It's full of contrast. And you can see and breathe art in that spot. So it's at a public space where I think you really get a good impression of Basel. Then to get a quick sneak peek to Basel's rich offer in art and culture, I would recommend a short visit in the Museum of Art in Basel. That's the Kunstmuseum Basel, which is really in the city center. And it holds the oldest public art collection in the world. So I think if you have 1 day, 2 days, I think you should go to that museum and just visit some Picassos and get to know the art and cultural offer Basel has. So I think it's quite spectacular for the city of Basel. And then I would take my guests to see the cathedral and enjoy the view from the platform Pfalz, which we have been talking before of. And then I would make them discover the 3 countries. So this is really a great viewing point. I would take the ferry, the Lion Ferry, and cross the Rhine. And then after a walk along the Rhine on the sunny side in Klein Basel, I would invite my guests to have a drink at one of the buvettes, which are like pop-up drinking stalls in summer, mingle with the locals, and round off the day in the cultural capital of Switzerland.
Well, I think you just missed one thing there. They need to finish the day with some Basler Leckerli.
Oh, yes, of course. That would be my giveaway, my souvenir at the
end. Wonderful. Well, you've certainly made me realise that I definitely do need to visit Basel, because there's such a contrast there, as you mentioned, with the history and the tradition in the old town and the old architecture, and then the modern side of it as well. So it certainly sounds like a place that everyone should include in their itinerary.
Yeah, you got it, Caroline. I think Basel is really unique, and it's Swiss, but it's different. So I think this is quite interesting, and you should discover what is behind that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Natascha, for sharing all that with us today.
It was a pleasure, Caroline. Hope to have another episode with you.
I don't know about you, but I'm definitely adding Basel to my Swiss bucket list. With an intriguing mix of old and new, there is definitely something to appeal to everyone, whether that be sightseeing in the old town, visiting the many museums, trying one of the many unique experiences, or a combination. Natascha's one-day itinerary sounds like the perfect way to introduce yourself to the city. Now, if you miss Natascha chatting about the wonderful things to do in Basel at Christmas time, make sure you listen to episode 34. Basel's Christmas market has been voted as the prettiest in Switzerland, so it's definitely one to check out. If you'd like more information from today's episode, you can find the show notes at holidaystoswitzerland.com/episode 39. There are links to the Basel Tourism website, a list of all the places and activities that Natascha has mentioned today, and other useful resources to help you plan your visit to Basel. Thanks for joining me today. Next time, I'll be back chatting all about Swiss drinks and sharing where you can taste the best wine, beer, and spirits in Switzerland. Until then, take care. Tschüss.
If you'd like more great resources to help you plan your dream trip to Switzerland, there are lots of ways to connect with us. Visit our website holidaystoswitzerland.com, sign up for our monthly newsletter, or join our friendly, helpful community of past and future travellers in our Switzerland travel planning group. You'll also find the links to connect with us in the show notes for this episode. Show notes and a list of all previous episodes are available at holidaystoswitzerland.com/podcast. Don't miss out on your fortnightly dose of Swiss travel inspo. Hit the subscribe button on your favourite podcast app so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed the show, please leave a rating. That's all for this edition of the Holidays to Switzerland Travel Podcast. Thanks for joining us and happy travel planning.